My beloved in Christ, they tried to break you with fire, but you became flame roof. They thought the heat would consume you. They didn't realize it would crown you. What they meant for destruction became your consecration. You didn't just survive the fire, you became the fire. And now you're walking proof of the law of divine return. Let me ask you something, chosen one. Have you ever walked into a room and felt the air shift? Not because you said a word, but because your presence stirred something in people. You weren't loud, you weren't trying to outshine anyone, but suddenly you were the problem. Whispers, side eyes, cold shoulders, fake smiles wrapped in friendly voices, and you're left wondering, what did I ever do to them? Here's the answer. Most are too afraid to say it's not what you've done, it's who you are. You carry something sacred, something unshakable. Your peace disrupts their chaos. Your strength reminds them of their weakness. Your light reveals everything they've been trying to hide. See, when you're chosen, you're not just walking through life, you're walking with authority. You disturb the comfort of counterfeit souls. You shatter illusions people have built to survive. That's why they try to dim you. But here's the truth. No one talks about they can throw shade, but they can't stop the sun. The betrayal, the mocking, the attacks, they were never personal. They were spiritual. Because you weren't born to blend in. You were anointed to disrupt. No weapon formed against you shall prosper. Isaiah 54:17. That's not just a verse, it's your reality. And let me speak this with boldness. The law of return is moving. It's divine, it's active. Those who plotted your fall will trip over their own traps. Those who laughed at your pain will one day choke on the silence of your absence. Those who spread lies will be haunted by the truth that refuses to die. You don't need revenge. You have alignment. You don't need to fight back. Your existence is the response. Vengeance is mine. I will repay, says the Lord. Romans 12:19. Justice doesn't always look like thunder and fire. Sometimes it looks like you rising anyway. So if you've been feeling isolated, misunderstood, targeted, know this. You're not cursed. You're called. You're not broken. You're being rebuilt in secret. And soon the same mouths that doubted you will have no choice but to speak your name in reverence. It's a spiritual contract, a sign to heaven and earth that you're not backing down. And if you've ever been attacked simply for being, for shining, for choosing truth over popularity, I see you. More importantly, God sees you. You're not alone. You never were. Stay with me until the end. We're going to close with a prayer that will shift atmospheres. But for now, breathe this in. You are not who they said you were. You are what God called you to be. And this next chapter, it belongs to you. They don't hate you. Not truly. What unsettles them isn't your voice, your actions, or even your accomplishments. It's your stillness, your presence, that quiet, immovable peace that enters a room before you speak. They don't understand how someone can be so calm in a world built on chaos, how you can be so composed while everything around you screams for attention. I see you stand tall without saying a word, and that rattles them because they can't figure you out. You don't shrink to make them comfortable. You don't flinch when they test you. You don't chase their approval. And that is precisely why they label you as a threat. But the truth is, you're not a threat. You're a mirror. a reflection of what they've buried, ignored, or tried to manufacture in themselves. You don't expose them with judgment. You expose them by simply being real in a world that rewards the fake. This is the weight of being chosen. Just like Joseph, who was thrown into a pit, not because he wronged anyone, but because his dreams made others uncomfortable. Genesis 37. His presence, his favor, his vision provoked jealousy in those closest to him. Not his enemies, his brothers. That's the painful part. The attacks don't always come from strangers. They often come from those who should have celebrated you but couldn't handle your light. They preferred you small, manageable, silent. But when you didn't fold, when you kept shining, you triggered something in them they never dealt with in themselves. Your stillness is disruptive. Your silence is unnerving because it carries weight. It carries God. And in a world addicted to noise, your peace is a revolution. Your authenticity reveals what performance cannot sustain. You walk into a space and people who are laughing go silent. They glance, they whisper, they shift. Not because you did anything, but because your presence stirs conviction they weren't ready to face. That's why the resistance shows up when you're not even trying. That's why they mislabel you, mock you, spread half-truths, and try to shrink your influence. Because when the truth is too bright, some will try to shade it rather than face it. But what they never saw coming is this: your power doesn't come from their acceptance. It comes from your alignment with God. And alignment doesn't need applause to move mountains. Like Esther, you've been positioned in silence for a divine moment. Esther 4:14. You didn't beg for a crown. You didn't strive for a platform. You just showed up with obedience. And in your quiet obedience, heaven moved. That's what they don't teach in most places. The power of presence without performance. People can sense it before they even know your name. They feel your frequency. They feel the depth in you in a world obsessed with surface. And for those who built their identity on shallow applause and curated approval, that depth is threatening because it exposes how fragile their confidence really is. And still, you never retaliated. You didn't clap back. You didn't throw stones. You chose silence over spectacle, obedience over outrage, faith over reaction, because deep down you knew something sacred. The law of return is not superstition, it's spiritual law. Cast your bread upon the waters, for you will find it after many days. Ecclesiastes 11:1. Everything sent out comes back. Every arrow thrown, every lie whispered, every room where your name was twisted to fit someone's agenda, it all circles and it returns. Not because you prayed for revenge, but because God is just. He will repay everyone according to what they have done. Romans 2:6. The return doesn't need your hands. It only needs your consistency, your focus, your peace. Keep sowing integrity. Keep showing up. Keep walking. Let them mistake your kindness for fragility. Let them mistake your kindness for fragility. Because while they mock, God is preparing a table in full view of those who doubted you. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil, my cup overflows. Psalm 23:5. And make no mistake, the oil on your life isn't cheap. It was pressed through betrayal, misunderstanding, isolation, and spiritual warfare. You didn't just wake up strong, you were forged in fire. That's why you carry authority without needing to speak. That's why you leave an imprint without having to explain yourself. The fire didn't destroy you, it refined you. And every person who tried to throw you off course only revealed your rootedness. Like a tree planted by streams of living water, you do not wither. Psalm 13. You bloom in silence. You rise in secret. And that's what eats at them. So let them gather. Let them talk. Let them question what makes you different. You don't have to explain your anointing to people who were never meant to carry it. The most resistance will always come after your most silent moves. That's the paradox of spiritual power. It doesn't need to shout to be heard. And those who tried to shrink you, they only sharpened your stance. They didn't weaken your faith, they proved it. They didn't bury you, they planted you. And now the law of return is in motion. What they sent has a name. What they said has a consequence. You don't have to seek vindication. You are the evidence. You are not too much. You are not the problem. You are the answer they weren't ready for. And this is just the beginning. Your struggles were never random. They were crafted, tailored, and assigned not to break you, but to build you. What you've carried, what you've endured, what you've fought through in silence isn't just pain, it's preparation, it's spiritual calibration. For a weight of glory few will ever understand. People see your light, but they don't recognize the cost. They admire your strength, but couldn't survive your storms. They mimic your confidence, but they've never met your nights of pleading, your days of being dismissed, overlooked, betrayed by those who swore they were for you. What they envy was not handed to you, it was earned in fire. Some won your anointing, but not the altar it was born on. They want the crown, but not the crushing. They want the oil, but not the pressing. But just as Jesus was tempted in the wilderness before stepping into his public calling, Matthew 4:1-11, you too have been tried in the unseen places, not to destroy you, but to qualify you. And after you have suffered a little while, the God of all grace will himself restore, confirm, strengthen, and establish you. 1 Peter 5:10. This isn't just survival. This is sanctification. The struggle wasn't random. It was encoded with purpose. The process wasn't cruelty, it was confirmation. You carry a spiritual blueprint that can't be duplicated. That's why the enemy attacks you in cycles. That's why your peace is challenged so often. That's why you've had to learn how to pray in places where others play. How to protect your mind in seasons where others lose theirs. You are not being punished. You are being positioned. The resistance you feel is often a clue to the weight of what you carry. The warfare is evidence. So when they roll their eyes at your boundaries, when they call you too intense, too guarded, too distant, let them speak. Let them misunderstand, because they weren't there for the breaking. They didn't watch you rebuild yourself with nothing but prayer and grit. They weren't present when you cried out for strength and stood anyway. Your silence, chosen one, is not emptiness. It is depth. Your caution is not fear. It is discernment. And your distance is not pride. It is protection. You're guarding something heaven deposited in you, something generations prayed for but couldn't carry. You're walking proof that pain does not have the final word. Look at Job. Not just for what he lost, but for what he carried through his suffering. He was stripped of everything. Mock, question, isolated. but he never cursed God. And in the end, the Lord restored his fortunes and gave him twice as much as he had before. Job 4:2. Job's struggle wasn't random, neither is yours. Every hardship you faced was measured. Every battle was allowed not to punish you, but to train the part of you that couldn't afford to stay soft. Every loss carved out capacity. Every betrayal taught you vision. Every delay built endurance. You didn't just survive, you transformed. You carry resilience in your bones. Now you walk with a gravity that makes shallow people nervous. That's why the law of return is real and active and watching. Not out of vengeance, but out of order. What they sent, what they whispered, what they plotted, none of it vanished. It's circling back. Not because you fought back, but because you didn't. You kept walking, you stayed focused. And in doing so, you triggered the divine reversal. Whatever they meant for evil, God used for good. Genesis 50:20. This is why you feel different. This is why your space is sacred. This is why you're careful with your circle, with your energy, with your spirit. You know what it costs to carry what you carry, and you're not handing it over to anyone who only wants the power without the process. You can't curse what's been carved by fire. You can't touch what heaven sealed through pressure. So let them observe, let them analyze, let them wonder how you made it through, because this struggle was quiet. But the comeback that's about to speak for itself. Silence isn't weakness. It's warfare without noise. It's movement without announcement. It's the sacred stillness between what was and what's about to be. And when a chosen one goes quiet, the atmosphere knows before the people do. You see, most mistake your stillness for surrender. They assume that because you're no longer explaining, you've given up. That because you're not defending yourself, you're defeated. But they don't realize your silence isn't absence. It's alignment. You've stopped responding. Not because you don't have words, but because your spirit no longer needs to justify itself to people who made a sport out of misunderstanding you. You've exited the performance. You've stepped away from the noise because you finally understood. When God is preparing to elevate you, He often does it in silence. He hides you before He reveals you. Just like Jesus, who was silent before Pilate, not because he was powerless, but because the moment didn't deserve his voice. Matthew 27:14. That kind of quiet, that kind of quiet, that's authority. That's knowing exactly who you are and not needing validation to confirm it. Silence doesn't mean you've lost. It means the battle is no longer fought on your level. It's spiritual now. The Lord will fight for you. You need only to be still. Exodus 14:14. That verse isn't poetic. It's a divine command. Stillness is a weapon. While they gossip, you grow. While they plot, you prepare. While they watch, you rise, and they feel it long before it shows. That tension they can't explain. That shift they sense but can't trace is the ripple effect of your alignment. Because when a chosen one withdraws from noise, it sends a signal into the spirit realm. A shift is coming. You stop chasing apologies you were never going to get. You stop trying to explain your value to people who already knew it but were too small to honor it. And in that silence, you took back power. You stopped feeding the fire and the flame began to die. You broke the cycle without needing to shout. You walked away without slamming the door. And that's what unsettles them the most. Because manipulation needs reaction. Chaos needs participation. And when you offer neither, they lose control. In returning and rest, you shall be saved. In quietness and in trust shall be your strength. Isaiah 30:15. They don't know what's coming because you've stopped giving them previews. Your silence has become a fortress they can't penetrate, a wall they can't climb. They don't know what move is next. They don't know when the shift will happen. All they know is that something is different, something is coming, and this time it won't be an argument or a post or a confrontation. It will be a divine reversal, and it will have timing only heaven could orchestrate. Don't let their noise tempt you back into old cycles. Don't trade your peace for temporary collapse. Let them misread your stillness as defeat. It only makes the return hit harder, because when the Lord return moves, it moves without warning, without noise, without audience. It doesn't knock. It doesn't ask permission. It arrives with precision, and it never misses its target. Let them dance. Let them laugh. Let them celebrate what they think is your silence of surrender. They don't know they're rejoicing at a false finish line. They don't realize the lights are about to go out on the illusion they built. Because when God finishes what He started in you, no lie, no rumor, no manipulation will be able to stand in its way. So keep your peace, guard your energy, hold your silence like a sword, because what's coming isn't a response, it's a shift, and it carries justice in every step. You're not breaking down, you're breaking through. What feels like falling apart is often heaven's way of rearranging what you've outgrown. They thought they were watching your downfall, but what they were really witnessing was your divine transformation. You weren't crumbling under the pressure. You were shedding the old layer, upgrading in silence. And because it didn't look loud or flashy, they misread it. They confuse your quiet with quitting, your stillness with stagnation, your absence with abandonment. But you weren't fading. You are forming into a version of yourself their minds were never prepared to comprehend. They looked at the cracks in your armor and celebrated too early, not realizing that what they mistook for breaking was actually becoming like the potter with the clay. God wasn't discarding you, He was reshaping you. But the pot He was shaping from the clay was marred in His hands. So the potter formed into another pot, shaping it as seemed best to Him. Jeremiah 18:4, that verse is your reality. The breaking was never meant to destroy you. It was the beginning of something custom made, refined through trial, trimmed by pain, strengthened by everything that was meant to finish you. Upgrades don't announce themselves. They don't show up in noise and spectacle. They come in the quiet moments when no one's watching. They come through sleepless nights, silent prayers, moments of doubt and seasons of invisibility. While they thought you were down for good, God was rebeating you for the level they'll never have clearance to enter. Chosen ones are not like the rest. We grow in hidden spaces. We don't flex, we fortify. And while they were measuring success by applause and attention, you were gaining spiritual velocity in the secret place. That's why when you re-emerge, they won't recognize you. You'll have a sharper focus, a stronger foundation, a quieter spirit with unshakable depth. Consider Hannah, the woman who was mocked for her barrenness, whispered about because of her silence. She didn't respond with anger. She went to God in tears, And in that quiet place, heaven moved. The same woman who was labeled broken gave birth to a prophet who changed nations. Samuel 1, that's what happens when transformation is born in silence. It's not for show, it's for impact. So let them misread your stillness. Let them laugh while you heal. Let them believe they've won something just because you went silent. Because when the return hits, and it always does, they won't just be surprised by your comeback. They'll be stunned by the version of you they can no longer access, influence, or manipulate. The law of return doesn't operate on ego or vengeance. It operates on order. Do not be deceived. God cannot be mocked. A man reaps what he sows. Galatians 6:7. What they planted in darkness is returning in broad daylight. And not because you chased them down, but because you outgrew the level where they launched their attacks. They thought they buried you, but they didn't understand the soil. They thought you were gone, but you were taking root. You absorbed every hit and let it become your fuel. The pressure didn't crush you. It compressed you into something far more powerful. And now the return is not just a moment of justice. It's a revelation, a living, breathing manifestation of who you were always meant to be. So the next time you feel yourself breaking, pause, breathe, and remember, you're not breaking down, you're breaking open. You're expanding beyond the limits they projected onto you. And the version they fought, that version no longer exists. You've become unrecognizable to the ones who thought they had you figured out. And that's the beauty of divine evolution. The most powerful kind of revenge isn't loud. It doesn't come with rage or retaliation. It doesn't shout or slam doors or broadcast its triumph. The most devastating revenge is peace. True, untouchable, soul deep peace that leaves those who try to break you scrambling for explanations they'll never find. It's the kind of peace that doesn't just quiet the noise. It silences the liars, confuses the manipulators, exposes the fakes, and disarms the attackers. Not with a sword, but with stillness. You see, chosen ones don't rise through reaction. We rise through resilience. And there's a level of spiritual maturity where you stop responding to everything that's meant to pull you back. You stop answering to names that were never yours. You stop fighting battles that no longer match your frequency. That's not weakness, that's wisdom. That's what they never counted on. They expected you to lash out, to spiral, to clap back, just so they could use your pain as entertainment. But instead you healed, you grew, you moved in silence, you chose grace. And that was your checkmate. And when you chose not to fight back, when you chose to protect your energy and stay rooted in your peace, the game shifted. Suddenly, they weren't fighting you. They were fighting their own emptiness in the presence of your stillness. Because true peace is a mirror. And when they looked into it, they saw the chaos they had been trying to hide. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God. Matthew 5:9, that's not just a verse. That's a revelation. Peace doesn't mean avoidance, it means authority. The kind of authority that allows you to walk through fire without flinching. The kind of authority that lets you leave a room without defending yourself and still hold your head high. Real peace is not the absence of conflict. It's the presence of God in the midst of it. And when you carry that kind of presence, everything that was sent to disturb you starts to lose power. When David stood before Goliath, he didn't shout. He didn't match the giant's threats with equal noise. He moved with confidence, precision, peace. Because when you know who sent you, you don't panic about who's against you. And that's what you've stepped into. A space where you no longer need to react to prove your worth. Your existence is the proof. Your survival is the statement. And your peace, it's the verdict. People often mistake peace for passivity, but they have no idea how much strength it takes to stay calm in a storm you didn't start. They don't understand the level of inner work it requires to respond with prayer instead of vengeance, to walk away without closure, to smile without bitterness. That's divine strength. That's next level obedience. And when your peace, because your retaliation, it speaks louder than any words ever could. You didn't have to expose anyone. They exposed themselves through their obsession, through their need to keep dragging your name, through the way they couldn't let you go even after you moved on. That's how the law of return works. It doesn't need applause. It doesn't need revenge. It just waits and then it moves. Exact, quiet and undeniable. They wanted you to drown in chaos. Instead, you became the calm sea they couldn't navigate. They wanted to pull you into their storm. Instead, you stood in your stillness and let your peace become the storm they never saw coming. You will keep in perfect peace those whose minds are steadfast because they trust in you. Isaiah 26:3. That's your portion. That's your weapon. That's your signature. Now let them wonder, let them overthink, let them talk, because their confusion is the consequence. Their restlessness is the return, and your peace, it's the most graceful revenge this world will ever witness. Every scar you carry, whether visible or buried deep in silence, is not a sign of defeat. It's evidence, proof, a quiet declaration that you survived what would have shattered others. These scars don't speak loudly, but they speak truth. And the truth is chosen one. You've been through things that many would never recover from. Yet here you are, not just standing, but rising. While the world admires your composure, your strength, your peace, what they failed to see is the war you had to survive just to walk into the room. They see your confidence, but not the nights you curled up in a corner, begging God for a reason to keep breathing. They see your grace under pressure, but not the betrayal that taught you how to stay silent when everything in you wanted to scream. They see your posture now, but they didn't witness the seasons when just getting out of bed was a victory. You've smiled when your soul was aching, encouraged others while you were bleeding, showed up for life when life seemed to be closing in on you. You were holding it all together while praying. No one noticed how close you were to falling apart, and still you made it. That is what makes you different. When Paul wrote, "We are hard pressed on every side, but not crushed, perplexed, but not in despair, struck down but not destroyed," 2 Corinthians 4:89. He wasn't being poetic. He was revealing what it means to be refined in the fire without being consumed by it. That verse is your story. You've been pressed, bruised, overlooked, underestimated, and still you remained. You didn't run. You didn't curse the darkness. You lit a fire within yourself and kept walking. You didn't just walk through the fire, you learned how to carry it, and that fire didn't burn you. It branded you, marked you, not as damaged, but as dangerous to anything that tried to destroy your spirit. Because chosen ones are not defined by how they shine in comfort, but by how they endure in crisis. You don't flaunt your scars because you've outgrown the need to be pied. But you also don't hide them because now you understand they are not wounds. They are credentials. They are reminders that you survived what was designed to finish you. When they mocked your fall, you were mapping your rise. When they threw stones, you weren't breaking. You were building brick by brick, pain by pain, moment by moment. You constructed a new version of yourself out of what was meant to destroy you. So don't let them confuse your quiet with weakness. That silence, it holds volumes of survival. It holds the story of someone who stayed soft in a world that demanded hardness. Someone who chose grace when revenge was easier. Someone who forgave in private what others would have exposed in public. The law of return sees it all, and it's not fueled by revenge. It's powered by justice, for the Lord is a God of justice. Blessed are all who wait for him. Isaiah 30:18. You didn't wish them harm. You didn't retaliate. You simply kept going. And because of that, the return doesn't need your hand. It moves on its own, swiftly, accurately, and with divine timing. The ones who laughed at your breaking are about to witness your breakthrough, not because you're trying to prove anything, but because truth always returns to its sender. The energy they sent out has nowhere else to go but back. And when it hits, it won't just correct. It will clarify everything they got wrong about you. So next time you catch your reflection, don't just check your appearance. Read your story. Every scar, every healed bruise, every invisible wound, they are your legacy. Not of survival, but of transformation. You didn't just endure the storm, you became it. And now you are the consequence of every attack that failed. You are the result of every silent night God turned into strength. They tried to destroy a chosen one. What they did was awaken a force they were never built to handle. And the return, it's already in motion. The tables always turn, but not with noise, not with spectacle. They turn quietly, decisively, and at exactly the moment no one expects. When they do, it won't just be a shift. It will be a divine reversal so thorough, so undeniable, that every lie, every scheme, every false narrative built against you will collapse under its own weight. You won't even have to raise your voice. Think of Joseph, thrown into a pit by his own brothers, sold into slavery, falsely imprisoned, forgotten by those he helped. But through it all, he didn't retaliate. He didn't curse the ones who cursed him. He stayed aligned. And when the table turned, it turned so hard that the prisoner became prime minister. And those who betrayed him, they had to bow before the very one they tried to bury. You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good to accomplish what is now being done. Genesis 50:20. That's not just scripture. That's the pattern. That's the promise. That's your future. Let them keep talking. Let them keep guessing. People who lack vision will always mistake your stillness for stagnation. But while they gossip, you gathered wisdom. While they try to block doors, you learned how to build your own. Every time you had the receipts but chose silence, that was restraint. Every time you could have retaliated but chose peace, that was discipline. These weren't passive choices, they were powerful decisions to stay aligned with a greater outcome. Because the law of return isn't just about getting even. It's about divine order. Whoever digs a pit will fall into it. If someone rolls a stone, it will roll back on them. Proverbs 26:12. 27. What they sent out is circling back. Not because you demanded it, but because you didn't need to. You kept your hands clean. You kept your heart focused. And that's why you're rising now. So when their towers fall, don't apologize. When the tables turn and they find themselves facing the very consequences they designed for you, don't flinch. The law of return is not vengeance, it's justice, wrapped in timing. And when it arrives, it doesn't tiptoe, it moves through like a storm, correcting the imbalance, restoring what was stolen, and repositioning the ones who never stopped building, even in the dark. You're not just sitting at the table now. You've been seated in places they swore you'd never enter. Rooms they tried to shut you out of, circles they said you didn't belong in. And the irony, you're walking in not with bitterness, but with peace. Not to prove anything, but to be what they couldn't stop. Because elevation doesn't come with a need to explain. It comes with evidence. This is the part they forgot to factor in. You didn't just survive. You outgrew every attack. You outlasted every setup. And now what once tried to crush you has no access to who you've become. Return isn't revenge, it's restoration, it's alignment. It's God saying, I saw it all, now let me handle it. And when it hits, you won't even hear the crash, because by then you'll be too far above the noise to notice. And now, chosen one, if you've walked with me through this entire journey, every truth, every scar, every return, then know this: you were never reading by accident. You were summoned into this moment because there's a shift happening in your life that no one else can feel but you. And it's not just spiritual, it's strategic. You're being called to stop shrinking, stop hiding, and start walking with the full authority of someone who has been handpicked by heaven to break generational patterns, to carry divine weight, and to ignite silent revolutions. Everything you've endured wasn't just so you could be strong. It was so you could be anchored, not moved by praise, not shaken by shade, but rooted like a tree, planted beside living waters. The world didn't give you your value, so the world can't take it away. And the ones who tried to diminish you, their assignment wasn't to destroy you. It was to reveal what still needed healing inside of you so that God could rebuild it right. You didn't lose yourself in the process. You finally met yourself. And that version of you, the one that emerged from quiet endurance and sacred suffering, that version is who you were born to become. Now it's time to live like it. This next chapter is not about proving anything to anyone. It's about protecting what God placed in you and building a life around purpose, not performance. Stop trying to convince those who never had the capacity to see you. Stop explaining your calling to people committed to misunderstanding you. Start showing up for yourself like you show up for others. When you wake up tomorrow, pray first. Speak life into your day. Refuse to move until you've asked heaven for instructions. Set boundaries, not as walls of defense, but as gates of discernment. Pay attention to where your peace grows and where it shrinks. Get serious about who and what you allow near your spirit. Every space you enter, every conversation you entertain, every word you speak, it either aligns you or distracts you. Choose alignment. Stay anchored. And when doubt creeps in, remember what was spoken over you. Not by people, but by God. Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart. Jeremiah 1:5. That means your path was carved before your pain. Your purpose predates your betrayal. Your future isn't determined by what broke you, but by what you were born to build. So act accordingly. Take the small steps that carry big impact. Journal your thoughts, not your fears. Pray over your wounds, not from them. Fast when your spirit feels heavy. Worship when your words feel stuck. And rest when the world demands you perform. Remember that rest is not laziness, it's trust. It says, God, I don't need to hustle to earn what you've already placed in my hands. And that trust, that's the seed of unshakable peace. Don't wait for peace to be handed to you by circumstance. Cultivate it, protect it, and above all, walk like it's already yours, because it is. When old wounds resurface, speak truth over them. When people bring up your past, smile and remind yourself you no longer live there. When comparison whispers you're behind, reminded that God's timeline doesn't run on fear or competition. Every delay was a layer of depth. Every closed door was a divine redirection. And every no was protection for a greater yes that's still making its way to you. And when the return hits, not if, but when, don't gloat. Don't celebrate the downfall of those who try to harm you. Bless them, release them, forgive them, because that's the final mark of someone truly elevated. They no longer need revenge because their peace become the proof. Your character will be the echo long after the noise dies down. Your alignment will be your authority, your peace, your power. So rise today, not with anxiety, but with assurance. Not with fear, but with fire. And if you need a practical place to begin, start by doing one thing every day that aligns with who God says you are. Whether it's forgiving someone in silence, deleting a number that no longer serves your spirit, writing down a vision for your next season, or simply sitting in quiet and thanking God that you didn't lose your soul while you were fighting for your sanity, start there. Small acts done in alignment with divine identity shake the foundations of everything that tried to label you less than. And now, chosen one, I want you to do something intentional. If this message pierced your spirit, if you felt God speak to you through these words, leave a comment below and type, I rise in silence and I walk in purpose. Let it be your declaration, your agreement, your signature in the spirit. Because when your voice joins this moment, you're not just interacting, you're activating.